Hey Grand Adventurers, welcome back. I'm your host, Mark Guido, and we're spending this week in the beautiful Columbia River Gorge straddling the Washington-Oregon border. Come along. The Columbia River Gorge is both a natural wonder and a critical transportation corridor, spanning 2 states and 6 counties, straddling the Oregon and Washington state border. The mighty Columbia River is, of course, the gorge's centerpiece, a lifeline of water, and the only sea level route through the Cascade mountain range. Rafting down the gorge from the Dalles was one of the most expensive and dangerous parts of the Oregon Trail, traveled by thousands of immigrants to the Oregon Territory. It wasn't until the 1870s that a wagon road was finally built through the gorge. The Cascades geology creates a rain shadow effect, causing a dramatic precipitation difference that distinguishes the lush conifer forests in the west end of the gorge from the exceedingly dry grasslands of the gorge's east end. Watch this morning's satellite imagery and notice how the Cascade Mountains hold on to the clouds streaming in from the Pacific Ocean to their west. Average annual precipitation drops from 100 inches to only 10 inches over an 80-mile distance through the gorge. This spectacular river canyon is designated as a National Scenic Area, 73 miles long and up to 4,000 feet deep. The meanders past cliffs, spires, and ridges set against the nearby peaks of the Cascades. The contrast between the cool, damp Pacific air on the gorge's west end and the hot, dry, desert-like conditions at the east end creates a substantial pressure differential, and the gorge is the path of least resistance between the two. That turns the gorge into an incredibly dependable wind tunnel, which is why the gorge has been ground zero for windsurfing since the sport's early years in the 1980s. Home to some 8,000 residents, Hood River holds the unique distinction of the only city in Oregon where public consumption of alcohol on sidewalks or parks is completely unrestricted. Originally called Dog River, Mary Coe founded the city with her husband Nathaniel Coe at the confluence of the Hood River and the Columbia River in the heart of the gorge in 1868, and the city itself was incorporated in 1895. It sits right at the transition zone between wet temperate rainforest to the west and dry desert to the east. Long an agricultural center of the Pacific Northwest, Hood River historically was a hub of logging exports and fruit tree orchards. Although timber harvesting remains an important industry here to this day, windsurfing is what put the city on the tourism map during the sport's infancy and has been sustained by the subsequent developments of kite surfing and windsailing. Hood River has received accolades from various publications, including Coolest Small Town to 5th Best Ski Town in America. The city was featured on CNN as one of 11 great riverfront towns in the United States. The Columbia River Gorge is an interesting place to try to find a good campsite. Thanks to topography, just about every campground is squeezed between two noise producers, an active railway line and a very busy highway. On the Oregon side, that highway is Interstate 84. There are numerous state park campgrounds on the Oregon side of the river, but all sit in close proximity to the interstate and have noisy trains passing close by at all hours of the day and night as well. It's only slightly better on the Washington side. Although Washington State Road 16 is less busy than the interstate, there are fewer camping options over here, and they're all right next to an equally busy railroad line on this side of the river. Most campgrounds on both sides of the river, too, would be hellholes for starling thanks to a substantial forest canopy. We've opted for Gorge Base Camp, an RV park directly across the state line from Hood River, Oregon, connected by the Hood River Toll Bridge, which may be the narrowest bridge we've ever towed our fifth-wheel trailer across. Lanes are less than 9.5 feet wide with 0 shoulder. We chose Gorge Base Camp for its unobstructed access to Starlink and more limited noise impacts. Here, the railroad is down a steep embankment below the campground, which muffles the train noise somewhat. And while the traffic noise from Washington 16 is substantial, it's nothing like what a camper would experience setting up adjacent to the interstate. We're paying $515 for a week here in a full hookup 50 amp site, including all taxes. Sites here would be a little tight if the campground was full, and given their tiny land footprint, I can't really fault them for that. And during our late September, early October visit, there's been plenty of elbow room available. The staff here has been warmly inviting too. Even with their small footprint, I'm impressed by their large dog exercise area, about the size of a football field. Despite the traffic and the railroad, we've slept remarkably well here. Something that I largely attribute to the comfort of our quality RV mattress. From our valued video sponsor, Brooklyn Bedding. Improve your sleep while camping with a new RV mattress from our video sponsor, Brooklyn Bedding. They offer 4 different mattress constructions in 21 different sizes, depending on preference and price point. Everything from standard queen to all of those funky, odd RV sizes. Brooklyn Bedding manufactures all of its mattresses right at their factory in Arizona. And RVmattress.com ships them right to your door for free, all rolled up and compressed in a vacuum seal. Just cut the wrap to unroll the mattress onto your bed, then cut the vacuum seal. For our mattress, Brooklyn Bedding starts with a layer of high-density foam for a supported base. Just above the base, an 8-inch core of over 1,000 individually encased coils provides the essential support. Immediately above the coils is a 1-inch layer of memory foam and 2-inch layer of hyper-elastic TitanFlex foam. Finally, at the very top is a 1.5-inch layer of antimicrobial Copperflex foam with TitanCool, which is designed to maintain an ideal sleep body temperature of 88 degrees. Every RV mattress from Brooklyn Bedding comes with a limited lifetime warranty and a 120-night sleep trial. Visit RVmattress.com/grandadventure and use code GRANDADVENTURE to get a full 30% off your entire order. As one would expect, most towns and villages in the Columbia River Gorge are at river level. One, however, is in a most improbable location up there on that ledge above our campground. That's White Salmon, Washington, home to about 2,500. White Salmon was first settled in 1852 by Erastus Joslin and his wife, who bought some land from the Klickitat tribe. However, the area was thrown open to white settlement in 1858, after the Klickitat and Yakima lost the fight for their homelands in the Yakima War, and were forced to relocate to the Yakima Reservation. Today, White Salmon is absolutely charming, complete with restaurants, wine bars, and more common small retailers like hardware and groceries. White Salmon is more or less connected to the similarly sized town of Bingen at river level, named for Bingen am Rhein in Germany. The first 18 miles of the historic Columbia River Highway, from Troutdale to Dodson, boast iconic panoramic views of the wide, majestic Columbia River that give way to a lush, mossy forest and spectacular waterfalls. Multnomah Creek, near the western end of the gorge, reaches the Columbia River in a spectacular fashion. Spanning 2 tiers on basalt cliffs, it is the tallest waterfall in the state of Oregon at 620 feet. The Multnomah Creek Bridge, built in 1914, crosses between the 2 falls and is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. This all sits right alongside Interstate 84, with the parking lot built in the median between the opposing lanes of travel. The falls attract over 2 million visitors each year, making it the most visited natural recreation site in the Pacific Northwest. Beginning in 1884 and continuing until World War II, the Oregon Railway and Navigation Company operated a stop at Multnomah Falls on their railway, which spanned from Portland, Oregon to Pasco, Washington. On Labor Day, in September 1995, a 400-ton boulder fell 225 feet from the face of the waterfall into the upper Cascade pool. It caused a 70-foot splash of water and gravel to wash over the footbridge, causing minor injuries to 20 members of a wedding party that happened to be on the bridge posing for photos at the time. Multnomah Falls may be the tallest, but they're hardly the only waterfalls in the gorge. As is the case with most of these, Horsetail Falls tumbles over the basalt cliffs lining the southern riverbank of the Columbia. Getting to Bridal Veil Falls requires a round-trip 2/3 of a mile walk to descend to the base of the falls. These waterfalls drop in two major steps, split into an upper falls and a lower falls with a total height of 118 feet. The two drops are due to a zone of more easily eroded basalt defile at the base of the upper falls. A massive basalt boulder detached from the cliff and lies in the creek along the pool below. The 249-foot La Tourelle Falls is somewhat unique among Columbia Gorge waterfalls in the way that it drops straight down from an overhanging basalt cliff. Most of the waterfalls here, even the famous Multnomah Falls, tumble to some degree. Most of these waterfalls are situated alongside the historic Columbia River Highway, which stretches for 75 miles on the Oregon side of the gorge, from Troutdale to the Dalles. Built between 1913 and 1922 as the first planned scenic roadway in the United States, it was bypassed by Interstate 84, leaving behind the old two-lane road that is still partially marked as US Route 30. Portions like here at the western end remain open for vehicle travel, whereas other sections are now limited to non-motorized use on what's called the historic Columbia River Highway State Trail. The octagonal Vista House was completed in 1918 as a clifftop rest stop, observatory, and memorial to Oregon pioneers, 693 feet above the Columbia River. Now listed on the National Register of Historic Places, Vista House includes historical displays, as well as a gift shop and espresso bar that are managed by the nonprofit Friends of Vista House. However, at this time of year, the building is only open Fridays through Mondays. Windy days up here are not uncommon, and gusts can reach 100 miles per hour during storms. We have one more viewpoint that we wish to reach, and that's going to require a 15-mile detour through the thick Pacific Northwest rainforest to the top of Larch Mountain at an elevation of just over 4,000 feet. Once stationed in the parking lot, it's about a half-mile walk to what's known as Sherrard Point, named for an early forest manager in the 1930s. I'm finding it remarkable that on this late afternoon there's absolutely no one else here. It looks like someone tried to drive out this hiking trail instead of walking, with spectacularly disastrous results. The view from up here is stupendous. On a clear day, it would encompass not only the Columbia River Gorge, but also Mount Hood, Mount Rainier, Mount Jefferson, Mount Adams, Mount St. Helens, and more. Alas, as is so often the case in Western Oregon, today is not a clear day. We'll bring you to both the famous Bonneville Dam and the tallest mountain peak in Oregon right after we take a quick ad break to pay the bills. So stay tuned. Bonneville Lock Dam consists of several run-of-the-river dam structures that together complete a span of the Columbia River, 40 miles east of Portland. At the time of its construction in the 1930s, it was the largest water impoundment project of its type in the nation. Electrical power generated at Bonneville is enough to power an estimated 900,000 homes, even though it was called the Dam of Doubt during its planning, as no one thought electrical demand could ever reach what Bonneville Dam could produce. Bonneville Dam was a project of Franklin D. Roosevelt's Great Depression-era New Deal to provide jobs and other economic benefits to the Pacific Northwest. Working in non-stop 8-hour shifts, 3,000 laborers from the relief or welfare roles were paid 50 cents an hour for the work on the dam and raising local roads for the reservoir. The Bonneville Dam blocked the migration of white sturgeon to their upstream spawning areas. The dam features fish ladders to help native salmon and steelhead get past the dam on their journey upstream to spawn. Visitors to Bonneville Dam can watch salmon negotiate the fish ladders via underwater viewing windows at the visitor center. There are now 10 turbines producing power in Bonneville Dam's original powerhouse. A second powerhouse with additional turbines was constructed on the Washington side of the river in the 1970s. In 1896, prior to the Bonneville Dam, the Cascade locks and canal were constructed several miles upstream of the current dam site, allowing steamboats to bypass the Cascade Rapids of the Columbia River, now submerged by the river impoundment behind the dam. The Eagle Creek Fire burned almost 78 square miles along the Oregon side of the Columbia River Gorge in the fall of 2017, after being started by a firework just west of Cascade Locks. At 11,249 feet, Mount Hood is the tallest peak in Oregon and the fourth highest in the Cascades. And it sits just 30 miles south of our campsite up the Mount Hood Highway. The peak is home to 12 named glaciers and snowfields. Mount Hood is considered the Oregon volcano most likely to erupt, with the U.S. Geological Survey placing the odds of an eruption in the next 30 years at between 3 and 7%. You'll just have to trust me that it's in there somewhere. I could have taken the Mount Hood Highway to get to Mount Hood, but thought it might be more interesting to follow forest roads over Lolo Pass. This is like driving a 26-mile-long driveway, but at least this section is paved, something that can't be said for the entire route. Mount Hood is home to 4 ski areas on its flanks: Mount Hood Ski Bowl, Mount Hood Meadows, Cooper Spur, and Timberline. Timberline offers the latest lift surf skiing in North America each year, until late August on Mount Hood's Palmer Snowfield. Timberline Lodge, at an elevation of 6,000 feet, is designated a National Historic Landmark. If it looks familiar, that's likely because it played the role of the fictional Overlook Hotel in Jack Nicholson's 1980 feature film, The Shining. Constructed from 1936 to 1938 by the Works Progress Administration, it was built and furnished by local artisans during the Great Depression. Timberline Lodge was dedicated in September 1937 by President Franklin D. Roosevelt. Publicly owned and privately operated, Timberline Lodge is a popular tourist attraction that draws 2 million visitors annually. Past eruptions have melted glaciers on the mountain that resulted in huge lahars scouring out massive river channels on the mountain's flanks that are nearly dry otherwise. We hope that you've enjoyed visiting the beautiful Columbia River Gorge with us. Now we're going to get packed up here and head further south in Oregon down to Roseburg. So if you're not yet a grand adventurer, there is no better time than right now for you to go smash that little subscribe button, the one right down there in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, and ring that notification bell to be sure that you never miss a grand adventure, which we premiere right here every Wednesday evening. We'd be honored if you shared the channel with your friends, family, and on social media. Understand, it's extremely important to us that if you liked this episode from the Columbia River Gorge, please be sure to give us a huge thumbs up down below. And while you're down below, that's where you'll find the comment section where we'd love to hear from you each and every week. So until next Wednesday from Roseburg, please remember, life is nothing but a grand adventure. We'll see you then.